Let's read. Thus, the mind's imagination. So, Srebna is discussing in this chapter what is reality and what is illusion. So, there are so many different things. So, there is no absolute reality in the physical world, and there is no absolute falsehood. Absolute reality is there, but absolute falsehood is not there. There are semi realities. So he has discussed also in the previous para how the mind, okay, creates things. Okay. So they are not absolutely unreal, they are conditional realities. Like the blue sky, the rainbow, okay, and the shadow. These are examples of half realities. They are real under certain conditions. Okay, so let's read the para. Thus, the mind's imaginations are not purely and radically illusory.
Shall I read?
Yes, please.
Thus, the mind's imaginations are not purely and radically illusory. They proceed on the basis of its experience of actualities, or at least set out from that, are variations upon actuality, or they figure the maybe or so might be of the infinite. What could be if other truths has manifested, if existent potentialities had been otherwise arranged, or other possibilities than those already admitted become potential? Moreover, through this faculty, forms and powers of other domains than that of the physical actuality communicate with our mental being. Even when the imaginations are extravagant or take the form of hallucinations or illusions, they proceed with actual or possibilities of the possible for their basis. The mind creates a figure of a mermaid, but the fantasy is composed of two actualities put together in a way that is absolute the earth's normal potentiality, angels, griffins, chimeras, and constructed on the same principles. Sometimes the imagination is a memory of former actualities, as in the mythical figure of the dragon. Sometimes it is figure or a happening that is real or could be real on other planes or in other conditions of existence. Even the illusions of the maniac are founded on an extravagant misfitting of actuals, as when the lunatic combines himself. Kingship in England sits in the imagination on the throne of the Plantagenet,
Yeah, it's a French word.
Plantagenet and Tudors. Again, when we look into the origin of mental error, we find normally that it is a miscombination, misplacement, misuse, misunderstanding, or misapplication of elements of experience and knowledge. Imagination itself is in its nature a substitute for a truer, truer consciousness, faculty of intuition of possibility. As the mind ascends towards the truth consciousness, this mental power becomes truth imagination, which brings the color and light of the higher truth into the limited adequacy or inadequacy of the knowledge already achieved and formulated, and finally, in the transforming light above it, gives place wholly to higher truth power, or itself turns into intuition and inspiration. The mind in that in uplifting ceases to be a creator of delusions and an architect of error. Mind then is not a sovereign creator of things, non existent or erected in a void. It is an ignorance trying to know. Its very illusions start from a basis of some kind and are the result of a limited knowledge or a half ignorance. Mind is an instrument of the cosmic ignorance, but it does not seem to be or does not act like power or an instrument of a cosmic illusion. It is a seeker and discoverer or a creator who would be a creator of truth, possibility, and actualities. And it would be rational to suppose that the original consciousness and power from which mind must be a derivation is also a creator of truth, possibilities, actualities, not limited like mind, but cosmic in its scope, not open to error, because free from all ignorance, a sovereign instrument of a self power, of a supreme omniscience and omnipotence, and eternal wisdom and knowledge.
Okay. So the gist of what he's saying is that the in the supreme, in the supermind, the Satchidananda is creating the world in itself, and it is the power of creation. But the supermind, when it comes down into the lower hemisphere, it becomes our mind. So the power to create at the highest level still is there in the mind, but it has become depressed. It has lost some of its power and some of its reality. So at the highest level, what the supermind is creating is absolute reality. But as it keeps coming down into manifestation, the power to create becomes more and more clouded, becomes less and less, it becomes diluted. So in the mind, it is not absolute unreality, but it is full of errors. That's what Sridhar is saying. So when you are in the imagination, also can think of things which are not absolutely real and non-existent. But as it keeps going up, even the power of imagination starts thinking only of those things which are possible and true. So there is a gradation. Absolute highest level, total truth. As it keeps coming down, the truths get slowly distorted and diluted, and at the lower level, it becomes a mixture. At the physical level, it is totally involved, it's only darkness. But as the again in the evolution, as it keeps coming up, that darkness becomes less and less, and so our mind, because we are dealing with the human mind and not the animal mind or the other minds even below. We are dealing with the human mind. The human mind is half knowledge, half truth, half falsehood. So this is what Sridhar is saying in this paragraph. So we'll have a look at it and we'll see how it goes. So thus, so what he said earlier, that's why using the word thus. We have discussed in great detail, and the mind, he has told you, is a secondary creator. That also we have discussed. What the mind is capable of creating. Now, it creates, as I said, it has created mobiles, it has created the possibility of homes, okay, of aeroplanes, cars, all these things. Who is creating? It's the mind of man. If the mind is not there, it cannot create all these things. Okay? So mind has a power to create, but it's a secondary creator. It can also create things which it can imagine, and that's exactly what happened with all that we see today. At one time, the aeroplane was only a imagination; it became a reality. So the mind is capable of imagining and bringing into manifestation and reality that which it is imagining, but under world conditions. Sometimes the world conditions don't allow it. Now, the world conditions are allowing us to go to the moon, but it is not yet allowing us to go to the Mars. But one day it will allow that also, and one day it will allow us to go even to the highest planets, the farthest planets. So this is the what he is saying. So I read each sentence and then we'll see whether it's clear or not. Thus, now just see, this is Rendo's style. Thus, in other words, he's saying whatever we have discussed, I can now conclude. Thus, therefore, the mind's imaginations are not purely and radically illusory, but they are partly true and partly a fleeting image in the mind. Okay? It's a fleeting image. It's not absolutely untrue. The mind can never imagine something that does not exist anywhere. That's not possible. If it imagines something, it is always, as it tells you, something that is there in the, which is possible. It is a potential. Okay. Thus, the mind's imaginations are not purely and radically illusory. They proceed. What is the they? Imaginations of mind. They proceed on the basis of its experience of actualities. Whatever I have seen, then that it imagines, combines and imagines. Experience of actualities, realities in the physical world, or at least set out from that, are variations upon actuality. If you variations, okay, it can slightly modify the actuality. Like he has discussed the mermaid, na? So It's a combination of a fish and a human being. Human being is actual, fish is actual, you are combining the two. Okay? Actuality, or at least set out from that, are variations upon actuality, or they may figure the maybes and might be's of the infinite. Now, this is a very interesting phrase, two phrases, maybe and might be. These are used also in the Jaina philosophy. They are saying, Syadva na Syadva. Okay? This is they have grasped this truth, that there is a mind, it is always there is a little bit of a doubt, it could be, it may not be. Okay? All that you see in the physical world is subject to Syadva na Syadva. It's half real and half not real of the infinite. What could be if other truths had manifested, if existing potentialities had been otherwise arranged, or possibilities than those already admitted become potential. What he's saying is, suppose you have, nature has produced a mango tree. Now you think of a mango tree, but the mango is a fruit. But now you can imagine another fruit. That's a potential. And that is what nature will do later on. Okay? So that's what he's saying here. What could be if other truths had manifested? If existing potentialities had been otherwise arranged, or other possibilities than those already admitted become potential. So everything is possible, but only in time. Immediately it can't be. Suppose I think in my mind that I would like a fruit which is a combination of a pineapple and a mango. In the far future, it may be possible. If nature thinks that it is possible, it will create it. But if nature thinks it's not possible, it won't create it. That he has said in the previous paragraph. Okay. Moreover, though this faculty, imagination, faculty, forms and powers of other domains than that of the physical actuality communicate with our mental being. So, there are also other planes of consciousness where these beings are there. We know, for instance, angels, okay, and elves and gnomes, they do exist. But moreover, through this faculty, forms and powers of other domains. He is talking of the subtler planes of consciousness. In the vital world, we have got all sorts of beings, elves, gnomes, and all. In the mental world, we have Gandharvas, Kinnaras, in Europe they call them angels. These beings do exist, but when we picture them, we give wings to the angel. Okay? The Gandharvas are also, and the Apsaras, these are all actualities in those worlds, but we picture them in a slightly different way. That's what I will say. Even when the imaginations are extravagant, okay, extravagant or take the form of hallucinations or illusions, they proceed with actuals or possibles for their basis. Possibles. Okay? So he is giving very interesting examples. The mind creates the figure of a mermaid, but the fantasy is composed of two actualities put together in a way that is outside the earth's normal potentiality. The potentiality of man is there, potentiality of fish is there, but nature is not going to produce them because it is not according to nature's laws. That's what she has been saying. Okay, it's not Earth's normal potentiality. The normal potentiality is, yes, it will create man, it will create fish. But a combination of the two, it may not want to create because it is not the law in nature. Now he is going to other angels. Angels are beings. We don't call them angels um, in our yeah, but we have the word pari, na? Paris are angels, na? Yeah, I think so. Griffins. Griffins are beings in the vital world. Chimeras. Chimeras also uh, not reality. Chimera is an illusion. Are constructed on the same principle. Sometimes the imagination is a memory of former actualities, as in the mythical figure of a dragon. Now, this is very interesting what he's saying. He's saying that The dragon existed in former times. It was an actuality. Now, I'm surprised about that, but the dragon exists even today, you know, but it does not breathe fire. The imagination of man gives it the power to breathe fire, but dragons did exist at one time, but I don't think they breathe fire. So we are combining. Sometimes the imagination is a memory of former actualities. Former actualities, the dragons exist. Even today, the Commodore dragon does exist in the islands. Okay, in the Commodore Islands or somewhere, it is there, which Charles Darwin was exploring and researching his theory. So dragons are there in many of these countries, and their saliva is poisonous. It may not be breathing fire, but it is poisonous saliva, and if it that falls on you, it can even kill you. If they bite you, finished. You're gone. Sometimes the imagination is the memory of former actualities, as in the mythical figure of a dragon. So I'm just saying very clearly, the dragon is a mythical figure. But the dragon did exist in former times, and now we have added fire coming out of its mouth. Sometimes it's a figure or a happening that is real or could be real on other planes or in other conditions of existence. So those things which exist on the other planes can become a reality in time later. Even the illusions of the maniac are founded on an extravagant misfitting of actuals, as when the lunatic combines himself kingship and England. Okay, so he is combining himself kingship and England and sits in imagination on the throne of the Plantagenets and the Tudors. Both were uh, lines of royal lines. Okay, Tudors were also kings, and the Plantagenets, Plantagenet actually is French, it must be partly. They are also um, they were a line of royals. So they even the hallucination is not absolute unreality. It's a combination of realities. Again, when we look into the origin of mental error, we find normally that it's a miscombination, misplacement, misuse, misunderstanding, or misapplication of elements of experience and knowledge. So even your worst possible errors are only a miscombination or a misplacement or a misuse or a misunderstanding and misapplication of elements that do exist. That's what he explained. Imagination itself is in its nature a substitute. Now, this is very interesting what he's going to say. Imagination itself is in its nature a substitute for a truer consciousness faculty of intuition of possibility. As the mind ascends towards the true consciousness, when our mental consciousness rises from the lower level to the higher level, this mental power becomes a truth imagination, which brings the color and light of the higher truth into the limited adequacy or inadequacy of the knowledge already achieved and formulated, and finally, in the transforming light above it, above, oh sorry, you have to read it like this. And in the transforming light above, it gives place wholly to the higher truth powers, or itself turns into intuition and inspiration. So what Sridhar is saying, that which is error at the lower levels of the mind, as it keeps going up, the error starts becoming less and less, and the imagination starts becoming more and more real. Okay? The gradation. We always speak of the gradation, so keep that in mind. The mind in that uplifting ceases to be a creator of delusions. When your consciousness goes up, you cannot imagine yourself to be the king of England. Those things disappear and you start seeing only realities. So hallucination may be possible at the lower level of the mind, but it is not possible when you start going upwards. So it gives place wholly to higher truth powers, or itself turns into intuition and inspiration. Intuition is when the light comes into the being, okay, and inspiration is hearing of the truth. Inspiration. The mind in that uplifting ceases to be a creator of illusions and an architect of error. No more error as you keep going higher and higher. Then mind then is not a sovereign creator of things. Note the word sovereign. It's not the primary creator of things, non-existent or erected in a void. It's a secondary creator and therefore it can create errors. But the errors are disappearing when you rise in consciousness. It is an ignorance. The mind of man is an ignorance. Trying to know. That is what science is doing. It is ignorance but trying to know. Even not only science but everything. We are trying to know. That's why even in the spiritual planes of consciousness, you are still trying. It's not absolute reality even in the spiritual planes of consciousness. Its very illusions start from a basis of some kind and are the results of a limited knowledge or a half ignorance. Mind is an instrument of the cosmic ignorance. The cosmic ignorance at level 1. Okay? But it does not seem to be or does not act like a power or an instrument of a cosmic illusion. It's a cosmic ignorance but not illusion. Note the difference. The cosmic illusion is non-existent. But the cosmic ignorance is there is a cosmic reality but you are not seeing it. Why? Because you are using defective instruments of knowledge. Your senses are not very good instruments of knowledge. So he's making clear distinction between cosmic ignorance and cosmic illusion. There is no unreality. When you are seeing something, it is because you are using wrong instruments of knowledge. Okay, very clear. The mind is a seeker and a discoverer. It is a seeker and discoverer. I substituted it is by the mind. The mind of man is a seeker and discoverer or a creator or would-be creator of truths. Even a yogi is trying to do that. Okay, a yogi would be creator. He wants to, by the mind, to understand truths, possibilities, and actualities. And it would be rational to suppose that the original consciousness and power, from which mind must be a derivation, is also a creator of truths. So, at the highest level, when the mind rises, it creates only truths and not falsehoods. At the lower level, mind can create falsehoods which are partly real. That's the whole thing. It cannot create something which is absolutely unreal. Not possible. That's what Sarve pointed out. Okay? So it's also a creator of truths, possibilities, and actuality. Even the highest mind, the original consciousness and power is from which the mind must be a derivation, is also a creator of truths, possibilities and actualities. So when Srimda is saying that India will be free, it's a possibility he is seeing, not the actuality. So first of all, it's creating a truth. The highest level is creating the truth. India will be free one day. And Srimdo, his consciousness has gone to that level and therefore he's seeing the possibility, not the actuality. The actuality came 35 years later. Okay? So, very interesting. Creator of truths, possibilities, and actuality. So, depending at which level of consciousness you are, you will see these things. When Mother broke the golden door, it was a possibility which she turned into an actuality. So, not limited like mind, but cosmic in its scope, not open to error because free from all ignorance. A sovereign instrument or a self-power of a supreme omniscience and omnipotence and eternal wisdom and knowledge. At the highest level, there is supreme omniscience and omnipotence and eternal wisdom and knowledge. And that knowledge creates realities. It also creates possibilities and finally actualities. So you can see we speak also of the blueprint. No? So the blueprint is a creator of truth. But in the supermind, the blueprint will absolutely become a reality at the lower level. But as it keeps coming down, possibilities intervene, variations intervene. Why? Because the one is becoming the many. So it can take many forms. The one is always the truth. But when it comes down, it lends itself to possibilities. So when you are thinking of the freedom of India, when it comes down, yes, India will be free, but it breaks up into Pakistan and Bangladesh. Now India will again come back, but not as one country, but as a federation. Okay, Sindh will join, Balochistan will join. It's possible that even Afghanistan will join because all this was India at one time. Bharat Varsha, the Akhanda Bharat, stretched from Afghanistan right down to Malaysia at one time. So, this was salvation. The mind of man can create that which seems to be unreal, but it never creates absolute unreality. That's all. So, as we keep saying, the idea that there is a reality and an illusion, that is not true. It is not that, but man with his defective instruments is seeing the reality which he is not able to understand fully. That's why he thinks he is seeing unreality. The problem is not with the reality, but it is with the process of knowledge by which you come to know the reality. To use the philosophical terms, if you remember, ontology. Ontology is the study of the nature of reality. What is reality? Half reality, total unreality. That's ontology. So it's not an ontological question because there is only reality in the physical and the subtle worlds. But it's a question of epistemology. How are you seeing this reality? First of all, you see it defectively. First of all, you don't see it at all. Then instruments of knowledge are created, senses, and then you see it partially true. And as you keep rising in consciousness, the instruments become better and better and better, and finally, you have absolute reality at the highest level. This is what he's saying in the. So we read the next one. We have got 15 minutes, so we can read the next one. This then is the dual possibility that
Shall I
arises.
read?
Yes, please do that. Do that. This then.
This then is the dual possibility that arises before us. There is, we may suppose, an original consciousness and power, creative of illusions and unrealities, with mind as its instrument or medium in the human and animal consciousness, so that the differentiated universe we see is unreal, a friction of Maya, and only some indeterminate and undifferentiated absolute is real. Or there is, we may equally suppose, an original, a supreme or cosmic truth consciousness, creative of a true universe, but with mind acting in that universe as an imperfect consciousness, ignorant, partly knowing, partly not knowing, a consciousness which is, by its ignorance or limitations of knowledge, capable of error, misrepresentation, mistaken, or misdirected development from the known, of uncertain groupings towards the unknown, of partial creations and buildings, a constant half position between truth and error, knowledge and nascence. But this ignorance, in fact, proceeds, however stumblingly, upon knowledge and towards knowledge. It is inherently capable of shedding the limitation, the mixture, and can turn by that liberation into the truth consciousness, into a power of the original knowledge. Our inquiry has so far led rather in the second direction. It points towards the conclusion that the nature of our consciousness is not of a character that would justify the hypothesis of a cosmic illusion as the solution of its problem. A problem exists, but it consists in the mixture of knowledge with ignorance in our cognition of self and things. And it is the origin of this imperfection that we have to discover. There is no need of bringing in an original power of illusion, always mysteriously existent in the eternal reality, or else intervening and imposing a world of non existent forms on a consciousness or superconsciousness that is forever pure, eternal, and absolute.
This is the end of the chapter, and what he is saying is there are two possibilities we are faced with, because the Mayavada philosophy is so convincing to the one who experiences it. So he's saying one possibility is that Satchidananda is the only truth, but it is creating illusions. That is the truth, no doubt. But it is creating illusions. When it tries to create, it is creating only illusions. There is the Mayavada theory, and to a certain extent also the Buddhist theory, or at least you can interpret it that way. The truth. So, if you want the truth in Mayavada or in the Buddhist philosophy, you have to go to the Satchidananda level. You have to go to the spiritual level of consciousness. But if you're remaining below, it will be always unreal. So you have to escape from there and go up. This is one possibility. But the other possibility which Swami is saying, let us consider, is yes, there is a supreme reality, but it is using mind as a subordinate instrument to see this reality that is created. At the lower level, it is not seeing the reality with its supreme eye. It is seeing it with its defective eye at the bottom. Okay, so that's what he's saying. So this is what he's saying in the whole paragraph. That therefore, it is not necessary to imagine that the world is unreal. We can always take sides with the second theory that the world is real, but the instrument by which you are seeing the physical world is itself defective. But that defect is not permanent. That it goes on as you keep climbing in consciousness, the defect slowly disappears and you start seeing the reality at the higher level. This is what he's saying in the last para of the chapter. So I will do two things because we have got time. We have got 10 minutes. So I will first read out the summary of what he's saying, then we can see each sentence also. Okay. So, regarding the problem of Mayavada, I am reading out the summary of what he said here. Okay. Regarding the problem of Mayavada, which is the problem? Is the world really an illusion? That's a problem. We have clearly two options. Sridhar is saying. When we consider Mayavada, we have to consider two possibilities. The first is that there is really a power of original consciousness that creates illusions. Okay? So, that's the first one. Just 1 second. The first is that there is really a power of original consciousness. It's true. That creates illusions. It has got the power to create illusions, which makes us see the world as unreal. And above it, there is a supreme, absolute, indeterminate oneness which alone is real. This is the Mayavada theory, and as I said, to a certain extent, the Buddhistic theory also. The second possibility is that there is a supreme consciousness, a highest, that creates a real universe, and in that universe, there is an imperfect mind which sees it as unreal because it is imperfect and an instrument of ignorance, come knowledge. The mind is not absolute ignorance, but ignorance come knowledge. This mind is in a midway point between knowledge and ignorance. But this mind is inherently capable of total knowledge and is traveling towards that goal. Now it is seeing unreality, but it can start seeing reality. Our inquiry, the research that we have done, has pointed us towards a second possibility. So he is not absolutely denying the other one, but he's saying that what we have been pursuing, our study, shows us, pointing, okay, he is saying, points us towards a second possibility, which is a much more plausible solution. A problem does exist, but it is not of an illusory world, but of a mind that has descended into the ignorance and is ascending towards knowledge. When and how has this ignorance originated, and how has this mind become imperfect? That is what we will discuss in the next next chapter. How has this ignorance, how has this capacity of the mind to create illusions, how has it come into being? What is its origin? So that's the next. So we have decided that the mind is a fallen condition of the supermind, and it is capable of error at the lower level. But as it keeps climbing up, the error disappears slowly, gradually, and you see more and more of the truth, and finally at the highest level, only truth. So we'd rather do that. But why is it necessary for the mind to become full of darkness? From where has this ignorance come? From where has this power of illusion come? Let us examine that. That's what it is. Okay. So this is the he's going to examine the next chapter. Next chapter. And that chapter is reality. Sorry, just one second. Yeah. Reality and the cosmic illusion. What is it due to? Okay. That's what we will discuss. And the most famous sentence from Shankaracharya's Viveka Chudamani is, the eternal is true, the world is a lie. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. But the Mithya has been misunderstood. Okay. So that's what Sriyamdo admits that. He says that Shankaracharya's philosophy is very subtle, and his expression of the reality is absolutely fantastic. He gives him very high praise. But it is not, the world is not an absolute unreality. You are seeing it as unreal. The problem is ignorance. The problem is not unreality. So how does ignorance come into the picture? And along with that, he will examine with that ignorance, evil comes in, falsehood comes in. So where is the origin of all these things? That he will discuss now. There will be many, many chapters. So just see, if you go back to the contents page, we'll see how it goes on. Okay, so just one second. So if you go to the contents pages, we'll see the gradation of the chapters, how is. So we are in the cosmic illusion. Now we are on the reality and the cosmic illusion. And the next one is the knowledge and the ignorance. What is knowledge and what is the ignorance? And then he starts examining also the nature of mind, okay? Memory, self-consciousness, and ignorance. And the next chapter, memory, ego, and self-experience. Knowledge by identity and separated knowledge. And where does this ignorance begin? Where does it end? The boundaries of the ignorance. The origin of ignorance. What is the nature of the origin of the ignorance? So, boundary of the ignorance, he will tell you that the overmind is the starting point of the ignorance. And the origin of the ignorance is the sense of separation. The one becoming the many, that's a problem. The sense of separation. When the ego comes in, ignorance starts. When there is a oneness, there is no ignorance. Now, And what is that? Exclusive concentration of conscious force and ignorance. He explains that that's the cause for the. So, when ignorance comes in, obviously you are going to do wrong things. So, therefore, there is falsehood, error, wrong, and evil. I am reading the content speech. Okay. So, that origin of in the remedy, how do you correct the falsehood and the evil? So, then, book 2, part 2, the knowledge and the spiritual evolution. So, first one, reality omnipresent, and the next one is illusion in the world. And finally, is that possible to completely change? Yes, it is possible by a spiritual evolution. So, book 2, part 2, the knowledge and the spiritual evolution, in which he explains all how it goes from one level to another level, finally ending in the chapter, the divine life. Note the beginning of the book is the life divine, and the last chapter is the divine life. So interesting difference, now. The life divine. Okay. Why didn't you say divine life? Because divine life is an adjective, a life that can be divine. But when he's saying that life divine, life is defective, but it slowly goes towards the divinity. And so it is more dramatic. Huh? The divine life is a little insipid as a title. But if you say the life divine, it is dramatic. There is a little bit of drama in it. Yeah? So that's why Swami has so carefully chosen that title, the life divine. And then finally, in the last one, what will be life when it is divinized? The divine life. Okay? So we stop here today, and next week we will start the new chapter and the new section also. No, not a new
Thank you,
section,
Rangan.
new chapter only, sorry. Maybe.
You
No,
will not redo this para which we just finished?
we can if you want. Yeah, we can do that.
I think we'll do that and
Okay,
then we jump to the next chapter.
okay. So redo last para of page 455. Okay.